with NorTech. NorTech is a tech-based economic development powerhouse covering 21 counties in Northeast Ohio. Johnathan Holifield, ladies and gentlemen, is the only person in the entire United States whose job description is specifically on inclusive competitiveness. And that is an economic vision that's going to take this nation by storm over the next several decades.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning. What we're going to talk about today is exactly what that title is all about. It's about competing and winning in this 21st century innovation economy. This game is not going to change. I'm hopeful that our whatever Q&A period we have following the presentation, we can dig a little bit deeper and talk more definitively about capitalizing and connecting Black boys and others to this economy. What you're going to see is from a unique experience. Like Johnathan Johnson, I believe his name is, I have a history with the NAACP. I led an urban league. I'm also probably the only African American who actually started and led a regional innovation-based organization. So it's the melding of that experience, that unique lens, that feeds this perspective. As you will see somewhere in one of the slides, I don't say this is the only way, but it is a proven way. The innovation economy, what are we talking about? We're talking about the period we're in right now, of course, beginning at the last part of the 20th century into the early part of the 21st century. 4 elements: further globalized commerce, democratized, widely available information, exponential growth of entrepreneurship, and accelerated new knowledge creation. That is what's driving our economy. Inclusive competitiveness. Policies, practices, and metrics designed to improve the performance, the characteristic performance, not performance in things that are disconnected to where the proverbial puck is going, but performance consistent with where the puck is going, including innovation ecosystems, clusters, emerging industry sectors, and every other thing that our regions, cities, states, and our nation hold as essential to improve our economic competitiveness. Here's where we are. This unrelenting innovation economy squeeze. From the top down, Tom Friedman made the phrase famous, the flat world, where almost every single job in the U.S. is globally competitive. Period. Nearly every single job is globally competitive. But that's not only the challenge. There's a bottom-up challenge called technology adoption and integration, where it used to be the bellwether of American economic recovery was corporate productivity, right? Not anymore. Productivity is through the roof. American business, global business has never produced as much as it is right now. Guess what? This many people producing this much. The further decoupling of productivity from labor means that it is no longer the bell cow of economic recovery. As bad as the robber barons were at the turn of the last, or 2 centuries ago, if you will, their wealth was intimately tied to labor and job creation. Today, the trader class, the wealth class, their wealth generation has almost nothing to do with labor, i.e., no jobs. This is a bit of that crisis. We can go through it. Globalization. I grew up outside of Detroit, so I know what has decimated the American manufacturing sector. Dramatic population decline, inability to create new jobs, devastating crime, racial tensions, all the isms. That's what's going on. What did those things trigger? If you don't leave with anything else, leave with this. TAPIM. T-A-P-I-M. And you'll note from my earlier comment why that P is highlighted. New thought and new advocacy to produce a new economic narrative. That new economic narrative must break through in the form of policy. Policy enables investment. You want the market to do new things? Create some policy and invest and incent it and watch the market react. Period. It's not more complicated than that. And fully embracing this progression will let you know where in the continuum your efforts are. You're in the thought and advocacy stage, haven't quite broke through the policy, got some policy on the books. Now can we get the investment to follow that policy and ultimately move to the market? That's the progression. Here's what it looks like. Build up, breakthrough, sustain. Thought and advocacy is the builder. It's the builder. The breakthrough is policy. It's policy. The sustained execution is new resources, money, people, relationships. I love the comment about social capital. That is so true. Social capital can be monetized over and over and over. Cannot overstate how important understanding this progression is. This is how it applies to my region. Cleveland, Northeast Ohio. Excellent example of how these tools work. How has our policy-making class responded to the challenges that I described earlier? How are we responding? This is what we've done. This might actually work better this way. Thought and advocacy, momentum build up, the breakthrough in policy. Ohio Third Frontier Program is a $2.3 billion taxpayer-funded investment to transform the state of Ohio's economy. The Fund for Our Economic Future is a philanthropic collaborative. Probably over the last decade, may have invested anywhere between $80 to $100 million into innovation economy activities. What did it produce? Magnet, Advanced Manufacturing Advocacy and Leadership Organization, Bioenterprise, Bioscience, Biomedical Leadership Venture Development Organization, Team NEO, an innovative business attraction and retention organization, Jumpstart, one of the premier entrepreneur ecosystem organizations in the United States, my day job employer at NorTech, a cluster-based economic development organization. With the exception of NorTech, which was a fraction of what it is today, and Magnet, which was a product of the federal government manufacturing extension program, this ecosystem did not exist before policy. Look, policy is not just legislation. It's influential actors' expression of important public objectives, period. It includes legislation, but it includes philanthropy, community. What's important in our neighborhoods? We have neighborhood organizations. We have minority-serving organizations. What's important? That's policy. And the broader view is what I'm talking about. Policy. Now, inclusive competitiveness, it's not exotic. It's not otherworldly. It follows the same economic imperatives that led to the first and second movers, and what I call the third mover is inclusion. There is no difference. It's the same thing. We want to apply new tools in places that they have never been applied before. Will there be innovations to the tools? Of course. But the fundamentals, it's like a great basketball player, huh, James? Michael Jordan was perhaps the best ever, but he could dribble with his right and left hand. He was fundamentally sound. From fundamentals, you can innovate all day, can't you? Here's a little bit, just to reframe. You've heard some of this already, but I need to be crystal clear about the good, bad, and ugly of Black and Latino business. Between 2002 and 2007, you had that last statistical period, had an explosive growth of Black and Latino business. There we go. Look at those numbers. African American businesses increased by 60.5%, more than 3 times the national average. We have now 1.9 million firms, only 107,000 even have employees, and only 14,000 even have revenue over $1 million, right? They employ 921,000 people. You want $1 million new jobs? How about this? Black-owned firms average 1 employee. That's 1 million new jobs. Now, that didn't sink in. Let's try that one more time. If Black-owned firms average 1 employee, we create 1 million new jobs.
Here you go.
There you go. Somebody will call and respond. Somebody says something. And the upshot is at the end of the day, over 13% of the population accounts for less than 1% of GDP. Same with Latino businesses. Tremendous growth trajectory. Nearly over 16% of the population, about 2.5% of GDP. What if ours was 2%? Not 13, 2. Imagine the economic impact we have in our communities. What if Latino productivity was 5? Not 16 or 17, 5. Imagine the positive economic impact. This is the other. Nearly 1/3 of the U.S. population, and trending upward, counts for less than 3.5% of gross domestic product. The law of inclusive competitiveness, and I believe it is a law. It's a law just like the law of gravity. It's absolute. No region can sustainably increase economic competitiveness without growing enough of the right people to create and take advantage of that increased economic competitiveness. If your region's economic competitiveness goals do not focus on inclusion, you cannot, you will not sustainably or build a sustainable, economically competitive region. It's purely a matter of mathematics. There's many more of us outside than inside. And I believe in the equity case, but I rarely argue that. I can make an effective equity argument. The best equity argument. But more important than equity, it's an economic competitiveness imperative driven by demographics. Period. Only takes a little bit of self-interest to get on board this train.
Yes, breakfast was awesome.
5 irrefutable facts, okay? This problem is not the result of entrepreneurial spirit, the lack of entrepreneurial spirit. The problem is the absence of job and wealth-creating businesses. Job and wealth-creating high-growth businesses are genetically different than good lifestyle businesses that we love equally as much. But that's not what we're talking about today. Okay? High growth businesses are girded by what? Come on now. There you go. Why? Because out of the STEM disciplines, generally you get a disproportionate amount of the intellectual property that attracts investment. You see, the earlier discussion, debt is backed by collateral. Equity invests in ideas. General. This is general. I'm just being overly general about it. Where you get the best ideas that are proprietary and protected that will assure me that when your partner leaves, he can't start a competitor do the exact same thing that you're doing. Intellectual property coming out of those disciplines. They're generally funded by private capital because of that very point. You don't have collateral. From early stage, from $5,000, $10,000 and so forth, it's general equity. And one big reality. We need a new economic narrative among African Americans and Latinos. And when I say narrative, I'm clear about what I mean. I'm talking about the dominant leadership, advocacy, philosophy that informs the kinds of opportunities, the kinds of organizations that operate in our communities. What is the governing narrative? This is an easy exercise. You want to know what a community thinks is important? See what kind of organizations and institutions operate in those communities. It's that simple. Another point. For the incumbent infrastructure that I'm a product of as well, what I advocate replaces nothing. It complements everything. Make no mistake, we drag a whole bunch of 20th century crap into the 21st century. You still got to deal with that. So there's plenty of work for everybody. No, this don't replace anything. It complements everything. This is the narrative. Just restating what's important in this century. Commercialization, further globalized commerce, democratized information, exponential growth in entrepreneurship, accelerated new knowledge creation. This is the narrative we need. Focused on STEM education, high growth entrepreneurship, capital formation investment, and undergirding all of that is broadly defined policy. Existing, this is to my incumbent friends, the existing minority economic assistance infrastructure is necessary, but alone it's insufficient. Why is it insufficient? You won't find many, if any, strike that, you won't find any mission-driven, tech-based economic development intermediary organizations, no high-leverage tech-based economic development intermediary functions, no independent impact technology-based economic development intermediary capacities, collective impact TBED intermediary practices. The new narrative can enable new minority-focused TBED, tech-based economic development intermediaries, practices, policies, metrics, action, all the things that we desire. They don't exist. Here's the pushback I get in all my presentations. That's what we've been doing. Didn't Mike take you through an exercise earlier? Just look at language. It's a simple exercise. Go to one of your leading innovation organizations, their website. Pick out some keywords. Private capital, equity, research, commercialization, intellectual property, blah, 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 innovation, blah, blah, blah. And go to minority serving organization. Pick out the keywords. Miles apart. This is good stuff. It's necessary. But alone, it's insufficient. Replaces nothing, complements everything. Invisible assets. Rookies. Look at this. Where do Black and Latinos live? Metropolitan areas. Look at the productivity of these metropolitan areas. 78% of patents 85% of new firms start, 69% of high growth firms, 75% of GDP, 68% of jobs, 96% of venture capital, 81% of R&D employment, all in metropolitan areas. Where do we live? Metropolitan areas. We live next door to the very assets that will be the salvation of the nation. Literally. However, what's that last word? These assets are what? Invisible to those disconnected from them. Walk right down the street and have no idea what's going on in that new building. The tens, hundreds, millions, billions even. In some universities, Johns Hopkins, it's UW up the street. What, about $700–800 million a year in sponsored research? $1 billion maybe, I don't know. One of the top research universities in the state, in the world, rather. What does that invisibility lead to? This is my region, Northeast Ohio. About 2% of businesses, tech-based industries, 1% of sales, 10% employees, 2% of gross regional product, less than half 1% of venture capital raised in 2012. In our region, in Midwest, not on the coast, not Chicago, in the Midwest, Cleveland, our region attracted over $200 million in venture capital, private equity, broadly defined, from early stage angel all the way to full-blown second, third stage VC. In 1 year, 600,000 went to seven different minority-owned firms. See that box right there, that present? with you can't see what's in there. It's the point is it's invisible. Okay? It's not just about equity, it's an economic imperative. And what are some of the profound consequences? You know, since we've had President Obama, some of the advocacy class have criticized, black unemployment is double that of whites. That's been there 40 years. Ain't the Black Caucus 40 years old? Look at him now, man. He's really going off the reservation. And as Mike has already said, the Kaufman Foundation, their excellent research, nearly all net new jobs are created by young companies. Okay? And the invisibility of the innovation economy to us and our disconnection from it. The profound inability to create new jobs, period. So, here's where we are. In an increasingly and uncompromisingly competitive world, as a matter of economic physics, if there is such a thing, and I'm bold enough to assert that there is, and if there's not, I declare that there is a thing called economic physics. We simply cannot achieve our highest economic competitiveness aspirations with such large swaths of our population contributing so little. Okay? And even in communities that have less than, let's say 25–30% minority or black, it's where you live. You live next to the assets that must perform. So if you're not contributing to their if we are not contributing to their performance, it undermines the overall performance of the city, thus driving the regional performance as well. It's time for all hands on deck. AHOD, all hands on deck, right? Where we must go. Time for new what? Tackle. Connect to innovation ecosystems, trim tab practices, diagnose, navigate. Practices work, and here's how I know. This is from my own experience. Launched and led Regional Technology Innovation Initiative with Fortune 500 CEOs, tech advocates, and all the educators and the like. Been in this game for about 15 years. Guys like me don't get the call that I got. I was a civil rights attorney and community economic development, political policy guy. I got a call from the Chamber of Commerce president, with whom I had worked and opposed. My side always won. What would you like? You'd be interested in doing something about this regional new back then we called it the new economy. This new economy stuff. Let me get back with you on that. Yeah, I did about a week's of investigation. Call me back, say, yeah, I'm your man. Yes, that doesn't happen. If you're on this side of the lake, you rarely get called up to come on this side. And all that stuff about integrating, that is the game. I still don't know the difference between community economic development and economic development. But they never meet. What's an ecosystem? Nature, innovation, same elements, different assets, and one big difference. Ecosystem elements connected, interdependent, balanced, community. Nature or innovation? Nature, living things and non-living things, plants, animals, shelter, water, things of all sizes. Innovation, people, talent, capital, education institutions, research, commercialization, customers, particularly marquee customers, philanthropy, professional services, and all other manner of assets, right? One big difference, how they're created. Nature ecosystems evolve naturally. Innovation ecosystems must be affirmatively created. For all the talk about Silicon Valley and the absence of government and this is a private sector, Silicon Valley would not exist if it wasn't for government. Yes, did it hit critical mass? And now is it a self-sustaining, largely private sector-led innovation ecosystem? Absolutely. Go back prior to that. Huge government investments that led to what we now know as the world's greatest innovation ecosystem. Which leads us here. Framework to diagnose, navigate, and connect innovation ecosystems. I'll ask us a threshold question, then I'll provide 8 examples of what I call trim tab practices to begin to get at this long-term question. Threshold question. Will we be bench warmers or competitors? Will we watch the action or will we create the action? That's fundamental. Our response to this question will inform everything. How to develop inclusive competitiveness. Need new practices, new individual practices, new organizational practices, trim tab practices. What do I mean by trim tab? I'll use my region as an example. Any military nautical guys here? This notion of the trim tab is not my original creation. I adopted it from R. Buckminster Fuller, a homespun philosopher who talked about, somebody must know that name, Buckminster Fuller. Homespun philosopher, also engineer, okay? And he talked about how do you turn a big ship. Well, we all know the rudder is the instrument that turns the ship, right? But turning that big rudder on a big ship is almost impossible. So what's the instrument to turn the rudder to turn the ship? The trim tab. That's how I operate. Others are pushing against the ship, and God bless them. That's God's work in my view. A few of us, not all of us, a few of us have to turn the rudder. I think the Black Collective, what I know about it, is a trim tab organization. They turn the rudder that turns the ship. And that's what this thing is all about. What are individual trim tab or attributes? Rule number 1, you cannot incent the right behavior out of the wrong people. That's right. You can't do it. You cannot incent the right behavior out of the wrong people. The kinds of folks who can lead in this space will treat these challenges like market opportunities, looking for solutions. They'll lead by action, persuasion, and influence, not by power. We don't have a lot of power. Okay? Conspicuous public presence, flexible and well-networked, strong convictions, no fear of judgment. Just like an athlete, you get judged every week. Energetic creator. That's the kind of people we need. Everybody doesn't have to be this. We just have none. Strike that. We have few. Too few. What's some organizational attributes? Anybody know who that is on that graphic there? Archimedes, credited. A Greek philosopher and inventor, credited with the first rigorous explanation of the law of language, right? He said this, give me a firm place to stand, a lever long enough, my ideas, a prop strong enough, my partnerships, and I'll move the world. That's what it's about. But it begins with a firm place to stand. Well-networked, disinterested, not uninterested. Any lawyers here? There you go. The judge is a disinterested party, but intimately interested in the case. There you go. Not uninterested, disinterested. Okay? Hubs, spokes, and nodes. This firm place to stand should be a hub, off of which should be strong, flexible relationships or spokes connecting to other nodes of activity. Okay? Honest, objective broker. Okay? Flexible, agile, entry portal, outreach portal, cross-system kinds of leadership. That's what it looks like. Trim tab of focus areas. That was predictable. Right? STEM, education generally great. STEM and STEAM even better. Capital, particularly private capital. High growth entrepreneurship, creating new jobs. Let's move to practice. And I'll try to pick it up because I think I might be falling a little bit behind schedule. Practice number one, comprehend the speed of the game. It's the reason why I chose Bo Jackson. I have a football past. Captain of West Virginia University football, 1986. Richard. How about Johnathan Holifield? He's actually right. Harrison's probably the greatest mountaineer of all time. Even had 2 years stint with the Cincinnati Bengals. Matter of fact, when I was there, we went to the Super Bowl, lost to Joe Montana, a big old Garden AFC championship run. Notice I didn't call it Super Bowl runner-up. But the point I want to make about Bo Jackson, that was a good player. That was good. What? He was down south. I think I was in Atlanta. And he was maybe 2 years, 2 classes ahead of me. But, you know, he's Bo Jackson. And I walked up, I saw him about 10 feet away from him. I looked at Bo, I looked at me, I said, man, that's what it's really about. I had 1 or 2 choices, be the best I can be or hate on Bo Jackson. I chose to be the best I could possibly be. However my talent take me, I'm maxing it out, okay? But the point is this game is a Bo Jackson game. That was a good small business by comparison. Forgot. Solid. We need a few spectacular wins. We have to. We have to create more jobs. We absolutely have to. A high bar for everyone, higher bar for us. Further democratization of information. We can get any. It's like Gutenberg all over again. We actually can find information, right? It's It's the most meritocratic economic era in the history of mankind. Is it totally a meritocracy? Of course not. But there has never been a more meritocratic economic era than the one we live in right now. It's money without collateral, right? It's not the civil rights struggle. It's not. At the end of the day, the civil rights movement was girded with a spiritual faith that our nation, as Dr. King said, would be true to what it put on paper. That we enjoy all rights and responsibilities as any other citizen. There's no constitutional right to innovate. Just opportunity. And if we labor under the expectation that there is a right versus opportunity, we significantly undermine our prospects for long-term success. This is not a legal solution in the same sense of the civil rights movement. This is really on us. You know, my brother says, he just had his trial sermon in Detroit. He tore the house down. He said, Johnny, you know, that stuff you're talking about, man, I'm telling you, it's right on. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I said, you're right. So he said, because I thought I was out, right? Yeah, you're right, you can't. He said, so your job is to make the horse thirsty. Oh. And the point is, the horse is not yet thirsty. We have really not demanded these things. Not yet. And it's time. Mind the environment. This is how innovation ecosystems are built. They're around key assets, you know, this 18th and 19th century asset visibility versus the 21st century asset invisibility. Making the invisible visible. At the end of the day, we have to perform. We have to perform. We have to perform better. We have to. Practice three. Begin at the beginning. My counsel is please do not just run out and start a whole bunch of new programs. Please. What will happen is this, and I can nearly guarantee you. Programs will fail. And the policy class will say, let's write that. The policy class will first wring their hands and gnash their teeth and then say they don't get it. We try. This is long-term stuff. And building a connecting narrative. I know that's non-empirical, it's squishy, it's not, how do you measure building the imperative narrative and all that? Yeah, whatever, we deal with that. But we have to invest in this new narrative to allow folks to connect up to and into new opportunities. The narrative does not exist. That's an overstatement, but you're going after the point. Measure competitiveness, performance, not participation. James, I was a participating basketball player. I hacked the heck out of it. I held an All-American at Detroit Cast 10 at 8 points in 3 quarters. He saw my coach, he went to Michigan State, saw my coach about 2-3 years ago. He said, hey, what happened to that guy y'all had back in '82 who was just beating me up all game? I was a participating basketball player. I was a competitive football player. It's not just about participation. It's about performance and competitiveness. Map these assets. Learn your game. Angel networks and all the kind we've discussed, councils, innovation councils, and T-bed organizations, and venture development organizations, bioscience, advanced manufacturing, information communication technology companies, universities, corporate research capacities, chambers, economic development organizations, philanthropy, accelerators, incubators, and others. You gotta map your system. Learn. Before you can start penetrating and making it, you gotta learn. It exists. Making what? The invisible visible. Practice 4. The way is more important than the thing. The way is more important than the thing. The process is the way. Simple. Simple process. Deployed into multiple kinds of things. What I call AOL, right? Don't say America Online. Gotcha. Aggregate, organize. That's it. Simple process. Over, and deploy it into all kinds of different things. You have an issue? Who are the right people who need to aggregate? What's the best way to organize and how do we leverage one another for the impact result? That's it. Do it over and over and over. A simple process that can be deployed in multiple kinds of content. The way is more important than the thing. The process is more important than the content. Be the lubricant. Gotta be the oil. Public policy is the oil. Private policy is the oil, or what I call the big agenda in your region. Gotta integrate into the value chain. I'm a big Godfather fan, right? You know any of your Godfather fans here? Not really. That must be an Eastern thing. All right, thank you. Bail me out, bro. Well, Don Fanucci was an early Don in Little Italy in New York. And when Vito Corleone, the star character, was coming up in the world, Don Fanucci said, I just want to wet my beak. That was his whole thing. He got to get his hand in everything. We got to get our hand in everything. Got to wet our beaks. Where's your community going? Map it. Connect into it. Shouldn't be a thing of significance happening in our communities or in our cities and regions that we're not involved with. Wet our beaks, right? Encourage entrepreneurial charm. Old notions of economic stability. Back when I was a Chamber of Commerce executive, we used to market in Cincinnati that we had one of the most stable economic environments in the United States. Businesses generally stable, didn't go out of business. We dug a little bit deeper. We had one of the lowest business creation ratios in the nation. Exactly. Oops. So it's about that entrepreneurial charm. Despite the politicalization of the term, creative destruction is real. And that's a charm. That's a churn. That's a dynamism to regions. The point here also is there are no undefeated seasons. You're going to have some losses. No perfect system, no perfect level of productivity. You know what happened to that team? They lost the Super Bowl. Now this one hurts when I go home to Detroit. See, there are no defeated seasons either. No defeated seasons. We gotta have some wins. We cannot lose them all, right? We can't do that. It's not about being risk averse. It's not about being risky. Risky is not the opposite of risk averse. The opposite of risk averse is risk astute. That's what we're trying to be. That's what we're trying to be. Savvy. I'm an exponential guy. Again, I'm not pushing against the ship. Some of us have to push against the rock. Not all of us, but some. And I'm one of them. And we need some help. Leverage, leverage, leverage. That's what this thing is all about. Leverage, leverage, leverage. Gotta measure outcomes. What gets measured gets done. And what gets measured and rewarded gets done very well. Let me digress for a quick moment. In this game, when you start mapping these organizations, you will be amazed at the level of talent that they have. I mean, top-notch talent that must be compensated and held accountable. don't know what exists in many of our organizations. Come on now. Do your own exercise. We can't create it. It's not magic. It's amazing how in our space we separate outstanding results from the talented drive. Nowhere else in our economy do we do that. We're supposed to hard it out. No matter how much heart I had, I couldn't yard this man at the post. Well, maybe. I don't know. See, that's that heart welling up again. That's that heart welling up again. But that's the point. You can heart it all day. That's not sufficient. You need the talent to get this thing done. And finally, embrace asset obsolescence. My view is this trim tabber role is a permanent role. It's an enduring role, although flexible. The innovation ecosystems, as a system, they're enduring, but they're adaptable. The assets that comprise these systems are in a constant state of change. They come and they go. No asset has the right to exist. At the end of the day, the market you can only support the assets that the market demands. That's what this game is about. And there are regions that are doing it well. None are doing it well inclusively. None. Closing takeaways. 3 S's. Sober, serious, sustain. Sober assessments of performance. Serious commitment and sustained investment. There's no magic. There is no magic. I'm not selling magic. I'm not selling finger popping magic. This is long, tough work. There is no silver bullet. There might be silver buckshot, multiple things that must be done at a high level may get us there. But there is no magic. And with that, thank you for your attention.
I listen to a lot of lectures. I subscribe to all sorts of stuff, and I have hundreds and hundreds of hour-long lectures in my car. I ride up and down the freeway. That was, there's no place else in the country we could go to get a better explanation than you just gave us.
All right.